Good evening, everyone. We left off on page 77. Chapter 5. Present Day. Kiri left the lab after reading all of the files off of Derek's computer and composing a report. They'd continue on the case tomorrow. They were sort of at a dead end at the moment. They were unable to locate Tajada, not surprisingly, and Peyton seemed to have disappeared as well. Davidson wasn't going to talk. They were all frustrated and needed a short break. Justin had given Kiri some information after talking with Derek. It turned out that Derek got an anonymous file with brilliant research into containment fields. It was entitled Explosion Research. Derek was planning on using a containment field on his own house as soon as he was sure Kyle was secure. After spending some time with Kyle and Amber, Greg and two police officers had taken them home to Greg's apartment for the night. Kiri was convinced that they were safer there. They were all going to reconvene tomorrow morning, earlier than usual, and see if they could get some additional information and catch Peyton. Kiri's cell rang while she was stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, again, on Ogden. "Lieutenant O'Malley," she answered without looking at the holographic screen. "This is Agent Anderson, Lieutenant, with the FBI. "What can I do for you?" Kiri asked politely. "We received your report on your current case. It now represents a threat to national security, and I've been authorized to offer assistance." "You're welcome to assist, but this case still involves 3 murders I have jurisdiction to solve." Anderson sighed. "And a little while ago it involved a kidnapping. Even though that's solved, that makes it a federal jurisdiction." Kiri normally didn't have a problem with working with the FBI, but she would be damned if she would let this Anderson guy take Kyle and Amber into custody. That would happen if the FBI assumed complete jurisdiction. The kids would go right back into social services care and probably fall victim to the Diablo operatives who had wanted to kidnap them for whatever reason. "Like I said, you're welcome to assist. We're reconvening tomorrow morning at 0500 in the crime lab. You're welcome to work on the case through the night and present us with what you found tomorrow. And we could use all the help we can get." "All right, Lieutenant, but we have precedents here. If your people or my people find Tajada, my people bring him in." "Understood," Kiri said. She didn't care who got credit, as long as the man was in custody. "I'll see you tomorrow." "See you tomorrow," Kiri echoed, and tapped her headset so that it ended the call. In another hour, Kiri was home. She parked the car and entered in through the door, dropping her bag and hanging up her coat before greeting Quigley. "Mummy!" Aiden screamed happily as he ran over to the door in sock feet. He slipped on the hardwood floor but scrambled up and hugged her. Kiri chuckled. "Careful there, honey," she said, giving him a kiss on the forehead. "Where's your brother?" "Setting the table," Aiden said. "Daddy made dinner." Kiri sniffed the air. Smells like..." Patrick ran over to her, also in sock feet, but didn't slip. "Shepherd's pie," he answered for her and hugged her. "Did you have fun today?" he asked. Kiri smiled down at him. He always asked her that when he saw her after work. "In a way. We made a very important discovery today on a case." Connor came around the corner and kissed his wife. Quigley, anxious for attention and jealous of the kiss, jumped up at them and barked happily. His tail wagged and he barked again. "Don't worry, Quigley, we haven't forgotten you," Connor said as he reached down and petted the dog. "Shepherd's pie," he told Kiri, "and salads for the 2 of us." Aiden and Patrick refused to eat salads, and since the shepherd's pie had vegetables in it, Connor wasn't going to make them. "Aiden got in a fight today," Patrick said. Aiden scowled at his brother and looked up at his mom. "I did what you told me," he said. "Yes, and now he's got work detail Friday," Connor said, clearly displeased. Kiri knelt down and took her son by his shoulders. She looked him over, noticing a bruise on his cheek, but other than that, nothing visible. "Did you win?" she asked him. Aiden nodded. Patrick grinned mischievously. "You should see his stomach. Looks like they used a baseball bat on him, and his knees are purple, but he won," he said, giving his brother a slap on the back. "Patrick, go sit down at the table," Connor told him. Patrick reluctantly obeyed, and as soon as he was gone, Aiden said, "I'm gonna miss the pizza party on Friday." Kiri frowned. "Why's that?" "Because he has work detail during lunch," Connor said. "How about we talk about this later?" Kiri suggested, and stood up. "Let's have dinner now." Aiden liked that idea. "Will you tell us stories about cases?" he asked her with pleading eyes. "Before you go to bed," Kiri said with a smile, touching him on the top of his head and leading him into the kitchen. Connor followed. They all sat down at the table, and Patrick proceeded to talk about his penguin presentation. "There are different kinds of penguins. I did a lot on the king penguin, and a lot of people don't think that penguins live in a different continent from polar bears, but they do. Penguins live in the South Pole. Polar bears live in the North Pole. Where Santa is, Aiden interrupted. They carry around their eggs under their bellies, Patrick continued as though Aiden hadn't spoken. They do that to keep it warm. And then they put the baby under there when it hatches because it's still too little to keep warm. And they take turns. The mom and dad both carry the egg underneath them, just at different times. The mummy and daddy penguins don't stay together, though, Aiden said, disappointed. He had already heard Patrick's report and remembered it nearly word for word. They have to take turns getting food for each other, Patrick said, because they'll starve if they don't, and they migrate too, just like other birds. Some people don't think penguins are birds, but they are. They don't fly, but they swim. They're really good at swimming. I never heard of a bird that swims before, Aiden commented. Ducks swim, and so do geese, Patrick countered. Not underwater, Aiden argued. They do so go underwater, to get fish, dumbhead, Patrick said. Don't call your brother that, Connor interjected instantly. Apologize. Sorry, said Patrick reluctantly. Aiden didn't respond. What did you think, Mum? Patrick asked. Excellent, Kiri said with a smile. That's just about the best penguin presentation I've ever heard. You haven't seen my posters. I made posters. One's electronic. Where did you get the electronic poster board? Kiri asked. Dad took me to the store after school last week, Patrick said. I wanted to do the whole thing in electronic poster board, but Dad said no. They're reusable, Connor said, but he needs to draw more, develop the creative side of the brain, he added with a smile. Which side's creative? Aiden asked. The right side, but choices show us that there are creative components all over the brain, Kiri told him. After a moment, Patrick decided to change the subject. There's one other kid in 5th grade math in my grade. She's so mean, he said. She's always chasing me and trying to kiss me, and she makes fun of me in front of the whole class. I think something's wrong with her. Kiri chuckled. It's her way of telling you that she likes you. And she's not going to let up until she grows out of her first crush, Connor added with a smile. Patrick groaned. That's so gross. What if I told her to leave me alone? Think she would? Connor shook his head, still smiling. Not a chance. Just ignore her. She'll grow out of it eventually. You could hit her, Aiden suggested. No, he can't, Kiri said quickly. No, you can't, Patrick. You only hit people when they've struck you first. Aiden would know all about that, Patrick said with a grin as he sat back down at the table. Aiden looked at his food and took a bite. So I take it you're going to continue with your advanced classes next year, Patrick, Kiri said to him. Yeah, absolutely. I have more fun in the advanced classes. I don't have to put up with all those kids that really have no clue what they're doing. Sometimes those kids do know what they're doing, they just don't want to act like it, Connor said. That makes them even more stupid, Patrick said arrogantly. If they know what to do, why wouldn't they do it? Being cool is more important to them, Connor told him. They want to be sure that they fit in and have friends. Sometimes the smartest kids get picked on. Yeah, Aiden said, still looking at his food. But that's no reason to stop being smart, Kiri said, or to act like you aren't smart, just so people like you. Those people that would start liking you if you do that are not the kind of people you want to be friends with. I know, Patrick said, exasperated. We always talk about this. Connor smiled. We just want to make sure you understand, he said, and patted his son on the shoulder. Aiden, you understand, right? Patrick asked his little brother. Aiden nodded. And I understand. So let's talk about something else. Soccer! I want to talk about soccer. Kiri chuckled. All right, subject change. What about soccer? We started something called suicides in gym. We have to run from one place to the next and then back and then go further out than the last place and then back and then even further out and back again. It's really hard. Connor nodded. I remember those. That's why they call them suicides. We did a weird stretch where you put your leg under your other leg and try to touch your toes. That's hard too, but Coach Johnson says we have to stretch before we play. We stretch in gym, Aiden said. We did this thing called the butterfly. You put your feet together and stretch your legs like butterfly wings. Coach Johnson makes us run laps too. We're doing the mile run soon. I want to get those shoes with the spring thingies on the bottoms for them, so I bounce higher when I run. Speaking of apparel, it's about time you get new tennis shoes, Patrick, Connor said. Patrick rolled his eyes. You grew out of the old ones, Connor told him, and you can't run around with your feet sticking out in the front of your shoes. We'll go out to the store sometime after school this week. Does Aiden need shoes? Kiri asked Connor. I want the ones with the spring thingies on the bottom, Aiden repeated before his father could answer. Spring thingies? Kiri asked him, looking curiously over at her 6-year-old. They spring when you walk. That doesn't sound safe, she answered, concerned. They're little springs. They make it cushiony. They're air-filled. Joey popped his. Joey's mother was very angry with him after he ruined his very expensive shoes, Connor said. What'd he pop them with? Patrick asked. He was curious because he had never been allowed to carry his pocket knife to school. Scissors, Aiden answered, during art. Joey's stupid, Patrick said with a smirk. He is not, Aiden protested. He wanted to know if there was really air inside. Joey could have consulted the pamphlet that came with his expensive shoes, Connor said with a wry smile. It would have told him what was inside. He wanted to see it, Aiden said, but it just went psss. Then it was flat. He smiled. Joey's expression had been quite humorous. You aren't getting those shoes, Kiri said, at least not until you can either pay for them or your feet stop growing. You'll be out of them in a month. But, Aiden pleaded, and then pouted. We'll get you cool-looking shoes with air in them, just not those particular ones, Aiden, Connor said. The meal went on. After they had cleaned up and the kids went upstairs to play, Connor and Kiri sat down in the family room, lounge chairs, and Connor started the conversation. How's the bomb case coming? We got a lead today. It's a tough one, though. Children involved. She couldn't say much more than that. Connor nodded sympathetically and said, I'll bet you'd like nothing more than to relax tonight. Why don't we go to sleep early, wake up slightly later tomorrow? It won't hurt anything if you're an hour later. Kiri shook her head. I have to go in early. The only reason I'm home now is because I can't very well be a hypocrite and tell my CSIs to sleep when I don't do so myself. We're all meeting early tomorrow. Connor sighed. You're going to make yourself sick if you keep working this hard without sleep. I'm getting sleep. It's just a question of how much. Connor simply gave her the look in reply. They continued talking for a while longer, mostly about Aiden and his fight at school. Then Connor stood up and stretched. Hey, did the new clothes washer ever come? She asked. They said it'd be here today between 1500 and 1700, but no clothes washer. Kiri sighed. Did you call them? That was another 30 minutes. They spelled our name wrong. It'll ship tomorrow. What have we been washing the clothes with? Kiri asked. They've been piling up. I'll do a load once the new one arrives. No, I'll get it before work. You've got enough to do. She got up, slowly stretching her back. Okay, he asked her. Do you need a back patch? No, it's just long hours, she said with a small smile. She had been stabbed 12 years ago, and it had given her grief every now and then since the injury. This wasn't the injury, though. This was simply long hours and stress. Connor still put his arm around her shoulders and said, Sure you don't want a back patch? Positive, she said, smiling up at him. Let's go upstairs and make sure the kids are getting ready for bed. They walked upstairs and found Aiden dressing himself in his bathroom, and Patrick still sitting in front of his game master, playing the flight game set in the past. He fired his forward cannons and destroyed a holographic MiG-29. He was flying what Kiri recognized as an FA-22 Raptor. Nice shot, buddy, she said with a smile. Thanks, said Patrick, not looking up. Time to get ready for bed, Connor said. We told you to be ready in an hour and a half. Patrick's eyes shifted to the game clock in the corner. I've only been playing for an hour. So it'll take you a half hour to shower and put pajamas on and brush your teeth and hair. Get moving. Finish up, Connor told him. Patrick swooped down with a swift movement and fired rapidly at a base. He launched 2 holographic missiles and then pulled up quickly so as not to get caught in the blast. There were no shielding devices back then. He yawed and positioned himself right above an enemy aircraft. Then he fired 1 missile and pulled away. The words destroyed appeared, and he nose-dove toward another building. 1 second, he told his parents. He fired rapidly and launched a missile. Then he swerved away. Level complete, the game told him. It froze in place, and then triumphant music replaced the battle music. He saved his game and turned the screen off. All done, he said proudly. Then he ran to his room and began getting his pajamas out and undressing. Showers never took him long anyway. Meanwhile, Connor and Kiri began cleaning up the game room. Connor lifted an empty game case from the ground and cringed when he found a spider underneath. He quickly squished it. Kiri laughed. Need me to take care of something?" "I got it, thanks," he said, but not without a slight shudder. She chuckled. "You're so squeamish." "I am not," he said in protest. "I hate arachnids. But with everything Aiden and Patrick go through, I'm definitely not squeamish. You're the one who refused to clean up the vomit." "Projectile vomit is not my idea of fun," Kiri said with a smirk. "And you think it's a hobby for me?" Connor asked her, also smirking. "Okay, point taken," she gave in. She placed the wireless controller on top of the console and looked at the side of the room where Connor had taken to cleaning. "You missed a book," she said, reaching down to pick it up. She heard her back crack and frowned. She stretched again, and the pain went away. "And are you sure it's all right? A back patch will clear it up," Connor said, concerned. He took the book from her. "It's fine," she said. "Just stress. If he keeps doing this, I'll put the damn back patch on." He smiled satisfactorily. "I'll put it on for you if you don't," he threatened. "I don't want to have to drive to the hospital for you on top of driving to school and everywhere else in Illinois." She rolled her eyes. "You won't have to drive to the hospital," she assured him. "How's the car, speaking of which?" she asked him, changing the subject. "Air conditioning's working, just in time for fall," he said with a wry smile, "and I fixed that damn rattle." Connor had spent a full Saturday just trying to get the rattle to stop, fiddling with the engine and suspecting it was a mechanical problem. It turned out to be a loose screw in the back seat compartment. But he didn't want to tell that to Kiri, lest she think he was not a master mechanic after all. "Good, about time," she said, and followed him out of the game room and into Aiden's room to find him seated on his bed, reading a book. "What you reading?" Kiri asked her son. "A book," he said, finishing the page he was on and putting the bookmark in. He closed it and showed it to her. It was a children's abridged version of Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Kiri nodded in approval. "Very good book," she said with a smile. "Do you like it?" "I love it. I think Captain Ahab is weird, though." Connor chuckled. "Yes, he is," he said. "He's obsessed with one goal, and he doesn't care about the safety of his crew. That's not a very good thing for a captain to be." Aiden nodded in agreement. "I like it, though. I feel bad for Moby Dick. He's mean and everything, and he did hurt Captain Ahab, but he didn't know any better. He's just a whale." Kiri smiled. "That's right," she said. There was a little more to it than that, but for now, Aiden understood the point. "Quigley would never hurt us, though," he said as he put the book away on his shelf, putting Melville right after Maloney and right before Meredith. He had alphabetized his paper books by author. "No, Quigley's a domesticated animal, and they don't often hurt people. Domesticated means that he lives in the house," Connor told him. Aiden nodded. "Where is Quigley?" he asked. The dog was usually right with them at all times. "Here," Patrick said as he walked in. Quigley was right behind him, tail wagging and excited. He licked Connor's face as soon as it was within jumping range. Kiri chuckled. "All right, who's up for a story?" "Me, me!" the boys both shouted. They traditionally started the story in Aiden's room, since Aiden went to bed first, being the youngest. He and Patrick went to bed about the same time now, but they still stuck with the tradition. "Let's see your hands. Are they clean?" Kiri looked at the boys' hands, and then looked at their hair. It was washed and combed. She sized them up, making sure they were truly ready for bed. "Teeth brushed?" They nodded dutifully. "Okay then, Aiden, hop in bed." Aiden got in the bed, and Patrick sat down on the end of it. Connor found a chair at Aiden's desk and sat down. Kiri sat on the chair next to the bed. "All right," she said, and smiled. "This was 10 years ago, about 2 years before you were born, Patrick. And this is in Ireland, of course. I was working for the Dublin police force, and I was a CSI, like now." The story continued, and Kiri had the kids on the edge of their seat. Even with the violent details removed, they were excited to hear how the mystery ended. When it finished, the boys smiled satisfactorily. "Are the bad guys in jail now?" Aiden asked. He knew that sometimes bad guys got out of jail. "They are," Kiri said with a smile. "So they can't hurt anyone," Aiden said with a smile. "That's right," Kiri said. "Now both of you, bedtime." "Aw, I want to hear another one." "Me too, me too." "Nope, bedtime. I'll tell you one another night, okay?" They reluctantly complied. Aiden squirmed down to his bed and pulled his covers up. He held a stuffed polar bear, Snowy, and closed his eyes. Kiri kissed him on the forehead, and Patrick got off the bed and headed for his room. "Race you," Connor said suddenly, and jumped out of the chair, running after Patrick. He let the little boy win, but tickled him the second he was in bed. Kiri turned Aiden's nightlight on and closed the door before walking into Patrick's room. "I'm glad you caught the bad guys again," Patrick said. She always caught the bad guys in the stories. "I'm glad I did too," she said with a smile, "but I didn't do it alone. I had a lot of people to help me." Patrick smiled back. "Dad, tell me a joke," he requested. "All right, I'll tell you one about a pig with a wooden leg." "Okay," he said with a cheerful smile. Connor sat down at the edge of the bed, and Kiri found a chair near Patrick's desk. "Okay, once there was a man traveling down the road. He came upon a farmhouse and rang the bell. 'May I stay with you, sir?' he asked." Connor spoke with a flawless Southern American accent. "See, I don't have a car, and I need some place to stay tonight until I can get to the nearest town." The farmer considered this for a moment, and then said, "Sure." So the man stayed overnight. In the morning, he came downstairs and found the farmer cooking breakfast. And in the kitchen, eating table scraps, was a very fat pig with a wooden leg. "Sir," the man asked, "I don't mean to intrude, but I can't help but wonder, what's with the pig with the wooden leg?" The farmer chuckled and said, "Oh, that pig! That's a prize-winning pig, you know. That there pig has won 6 fair medals." "That's fascinating," the traveler said, "but what about the wooden leg?" The farmer answered, "And that there pig has saved my life and my whole family's life. We were caught in burning building, and that pig oinked so loud that we woke up, 'cause we were a-sleepin', and we got out in time." "That's amazing," the traveler said, "but what about the wooden leg?" "And that there pig has rescued my kid from a well once." The traveler interrupted the farmer at this point and said, "That's really great, but what about the wooden leg?" The farmer looked at the traveler square in the eye and said, "Well, you wouldn't want to eat a pig that great all at once, would you?" Patrick burst out laughing. "Ew," he said, still giggling. Kiri smiled fondly at her husband. He was quirky, handy, and though some of his jokes were recycled, he still made her laugh at any time and place. He did impressions, and he could do accents flawlessly. "Now to bed," Connor said with a smile, and gave Patrick a kiss on the forehead. He patted his son's head before standing up and saying, "Good night." "Night," Patrick said. "Sweet dreams," Kiri told him. She exited with Connor, and they decided to retire early to their bedroom. We'll read more tomorrow.